Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continues to face growing calls to step down. Since his return to Ottawa on Friday, Trudeau remains tight-lipped about his future plans. A special meeting of the Liberal caucus is scheduled for Wednesday as the party prepares for non-confidence motions promised by the three opposition parties. Public policy expert Stevie O'Brien joins us now to discuss this further. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is the worst we've ever seen it for Trudeau. Do you think it's time for him to step down, and do you think he will?
I don't see a path forward to victory with Prime Minister Trudeau leading the party. So I think for that very reason, it's time for a change. Whether or not he agrees with that, I think is the big question. And the silence since mid-December has been deafening. It's really going to be telling what comes out of the National Caucus meeting on Wednesday, which is like a 6-hour meeting. And I think it's going to depend a lot on who comes in person, what arguments are made, and whether or not the Prime Minister even participates.
Yeah, whether they come in person or not, because I know there are some that can enter virtually. So what are the next steps here for Justin Trudeau?
So he's going to have to have some response to caucus within, I'd say, the next week, whether he's staying, whether he's going, and hopefully, if he is going, the mechanism for choosing the next leader. Canadian politicians don't tend to have interim prime ministers, so there's a strong likelihood that even if a leadership race is to take place, that he will stay on as prime minister during that, like Mulroney did in the lead up to Kim Campbell becoming prime minister. That's going to create its own interesting dynamic with having a sort of lame duck prime minister negotiating with Trump over the tariff issue. So perhaps for that reason alone, they won't go that route. I think the other thing that's going to have to necessarily come out of this is a prorogation of Parliament.
Interesting. Now, we talked about that Liberal caucus meeting coming up. What do you think will be discussed there?
I think you're going to see a repetition of what's already been reported in the news. The various regional caucus groups will come forward and repeat what they've already said sort of publicly. I think we've seen the Ontario, Quebec caucus come out. We'll probably see, well, we won't see, but in national caucus, you'll see BC caucus, other regional caucuses will also speak up. Again, I think it really is going to depend on who comes into the room. As we've all been over the last few years on many Zoom meetings, your voice is much more impactful if you are there. And if most people attend virtually, I think there's a stronger chance that the Prime Minister survives another day.
I want to elaborate a bit more on something you mentioned, the new administration coming into the White House. For Canadians, is this a bad time for an early election and a shift in our leadership?
This isn't a great time to, I think, show weakness and to show vulnerability to the incoming American president. That being said, I don't think we in Canada should be living in fear or of a trade war or the tariff threat. At least to such a degree that we bend our processes, we bend our principles, or we change our systems. So not ideal, but whoever, goes into 2025, whether at the end of the election, whether it's Prime Minister Trudeau, whether it's a POV administration or a new Liberal government, at least they'll have a very clear mandate from Canadians on and when they go forward and deal with Canada-US relations.
What do you think a POV administration would look like alongside a Trump administration?
I worry that there will be a lot more of the playing on theatrics. There will be, I don't know. Polyev it's a safe place to act when you are in opposition, to be talking about what you would do or, criticizing the government. I'm not sure that President Trump is going to find Polyev in any way an equal or somebody he wants to deal with either. It's going to be a lot more challenging, I think, when you're in the chair and steering the bus than it is to just sort of critique from the outsides.
Well, speaking of new leadership, there are reports Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney are reaching out to MPs in a bid to launch their leadership race. Could they be the next leaders of the Liberal Party, or if not, who are some possible candidates?
So those are two names that are definitely probably top of the list. I'd add Dominic LeBlanc as well as somebody who, especially if we're talking in the CAN-US context, would be a very strong leader in dealing with the intergovernmental CAN-US relations piece. One of the challenges I think someone like Carney faces is, while it's one thing to be popular or to have the support of, Canadians across the country. And when you're winning a leadership, you really need the support of caucus and the support of, party membership. And I'm not sure that he has that in the way that, Minister Freeland or former Minister Freeland or Minister LeBlanc have.
Okay, well, Parliament is set to resume on January 27th. Stevie, thanks for your insight today. That's Stevie O'Brien, a public policy expert.